discussing about thromboembolism and emboli in general, right? Wherein I told you any particle that can detach a clump, essentially any object that will be part of your body initially, and it can move around in your blood vessels and it can cause blockage anywhere else, will be classified as an embolus. All right, this free moving object, free moving thrombus in general, is called an embolus. Now, yesterday we came up to systemic embolism, wherein I told you sometimes there will be a problem in the heart itself, and because of the problem in the heart, the original problem starts in the heart. And for example, patient को infarction हुआ, myocardial infarction हुआ, patient has a history of heart attack, या cardiomyopathy है, rheumatic heart disease है, congenital heart disease है, कोई infective endocarditis है, कुछ problem था, prosthetic cardiac valves है, यहाँ से embolus start हो रहा, it is entering into your blood, it is flowing around, and then it is causing a thrombi, or it is developing into an embolism. Now coming to the next type, we have fat embolism. So as the name suggests, you have a molecule of fat, essentially obstruction of arterioles and capillaries by fat globules is, constitutes a fat embolism. This is very common in patients who have see, there are certain ways through which a fat embolus occurs. Okay, if the obstruction is occurring in circulation by adipose tissue, then fat tissue embolism बोलते हैं इसको. So fat embolism and fat tissue embolism is slightly different. If there is damage to adipose tissue because of whatever reason, and that fat tissue is coming out and causing an embolism, that is called a fat tissue embolism. Other than that, fat embolism can be of two causes. या तो traumatic रह सकता, because of a trauma, because of some damage, or it can be non-traumatic. So first of all, coming to traumatic causes, example, let us suppose someone has fracture in the bones, ठीक है, long bones especially. Long bones में जब भी fracture होता, there is a good chance that the marrow that is present in inside the bone, uh, जो bone marrow रहता, that has a lot of fat in it. ठीक है, whenever that fatty marrow is entering circulation, because there is fracture, it will obviously damage the nearby blood vessel as well. And whenever these nearby blood vessels are damaged, there is hemorrhage, there is a chance that this bone marrow can enter that blood. Once it is entering the blood, it can go any which way. That fatty marrow itself will act as an embolus. So that is one way how traumatic causes can lead to an embolism. So sometimes it can be a trauma to soft tissue as well. For example, laceration of adipose tissue because of whatever reason. Let's suppose someone is getting stabbed or someone is getting damaged. Their adipose tissue is getting damaged and it is getting lacerated, causing an internal injury. And that fat tissue is going around and it is causing an embolism. Those are traumatic causes. Non-traumatic causes, there will be damage, but it will not exactly be trauma in the sense nothing will break or nothing will tear apart. There can be other kind of damage. For example, burns. That is a non-traumatic type. Excessive burns. The effect of excessive burns will be fat embolism. Diabetes mellitus. Patients who have diabetes mellitus, उनके अंदर हो सकता. Fatty liver है. If the liver is covered with a lot of adipose tissue, there is a chance that at one point or the other they will have. Alcoholics में generally होता ये, pancreatitis में होता. If patient has severe chronic or acute pancreatitis, वो patients में हो सकता. Sickle cell anemia में होता. Or if the patient has inflammation of bones or inflammation of soft tissue, all of this can be accounted to non-traumatic causes of fat embolism, right? Wherein molecules of fat are moving around and they are causing an embolism. Then we have a special type of embolism called air embolism. As the name suggests, there is a molecule of air, essentially a bubble, that is entering either into your venous circulation or arterial circulation. Venous air embolism, venous air embolism, this can occur if generally occurs in surgeries. ठीक है, head and neck surgery operation, head and neck trauma हुआ या head and neck surgery कर रहे हैं, obstetrics procedures कर रहे हैं, gynecological procedures कर रहे हैं, gynecological trauma हुआ, या फिर you are infusing something intravenously, ठीक है, any fluid, or if you're infusing blood intravenously, or if you're performing angiography, all of this can lead to venous air embolism. If the procedure is not done carefully and you're allowing bubbles to enter into the circulation, at in all of these scenarios it can lead to venous air embolism. Sometimes uh, it can be an arterial air embolism as well. Arterial air embolism जो है, it will occur if the patient is undergoing cardiothoracic surgery, या इट कैन बी आर्टीरियोग्राफी एज वेल. ठीक है, आप आर्टरी में इन्वेट कर रहे हैं. समटाइम्स एंट्री इनटू पल्मनरी वेन्स दैट आर सप्लाइंग ऑक्सीजनेटेड ब्लड टू योर लेफ्ट साइड ऑफ द हार्ट, उसमें भी अगर लेट्स सपोज एयर इज एंटरिंग, और एनी ट्रिब्यूटरी ऑफ दैट pulmonary vein, let's suppose one branch of that pulmonary vein has a molecule of air entering into it, that can lead to an arterial occlusion or arterial air embolism. All right. Then there is a special type of air embolism called gas embolism, or the effect of that is called decompression sickness. Now, this is commonly seen in people who are scuba divers or deep sea divers. Okay. Decompression sickness is a special type of gas embolism in which what happens is the individual is decompressing very, very quickly or suddenly. What does decompression mean in this scenario? Let us suppose there is a deep sea diver. Okay, they are going quite deep into the ocean or wherever they are diving. Okay, let us suppose they are diving to a depth of 20, 30, 40 feet. Example. Okay, they are going 40 feet deep. What will be the pressure at that depth? High rehta, kam rehta? Let's suppose the atmospheric pressure is 1 atmosphere. Okay, 1 atm is your atmospheric pressure generally where you live. Okay, what will happen if I go deeper into down, essentially if I go deeper into water, if I go closer to the core of the earth, pressure, what will happen to the pressure? Will it increase or will it decrease? Increase hota, decrease hota? There's a lot of background noise. Increase. Okay, yes. So what happens is, as you keep going deeper and deeper, whether you have ever attended swimming classes, or you have a habit of swimming, you will know, as you start going deeper into water, or in any scenario, even if you go into a cave and you start going deeper, if it is a cave you'll not feel it as much because it is only air. If you go into water and start diving through water, then you'll feel it. You'll definitely feel the pressure coming from all ends, especially if you dive quite deep. Okay, at that point what is happening is you are under a lot of pressure, your body is compressed. Okay, the blood vessels in your body, all of them are feeling the compression of the surrounding pressure. Now let us suppose that scuba diver or the person who has dived is suddenly coming up, is not gradually swimming up, but is suddenly coming up, he is being shot up. For example, someone is pulling him up or her up, whoever it is. Okay, or that is one scenario where they are going from a high pressure area to normal area. Or conversely, another thing can happen, another way decompression sickness can happen is, if someone who is staying at normal pressure, they are suddenly going to low pressure area. Now low pressure area can be they are going for a flight. ठीक है, generally nausea vomiting जो होती, motion sickness, airplane sickness, वो generally ये pressure difference की वजह से होती है. If you ever observe small children, infants, neonates, they will start crying a lot whenever the airplane takes off. Okay, I'm not sure whether you've experienced it or not, but generally young like neonates under 1 years old or on, even children, they'll start crying. Okay, because they will not be able to handle that pressure. Even you will feel it, but sometimes people will not, they can just brush it off. Some people will feel it quite a lot. This is because of sudden drop in the pressure. Okay, you are used to a normal pressure around at normal sea level. Okay, if you go at a higher altitude, whether it is hiking kar rahe to generally you are going gradually, right? Let's suppose you are taking a lift or an elevator which is suddenly putting you at a very low altitude or very high altitude with low pressure. That can also cause decompression sickness, wherein your body is suddenly decompressing. Okay, pressure generally hata de rahe suddenly. That lack of pressure or that removal of pressure can lead to bubble formation. Okay, it can lead to formation of gases inside your blood vessel. Now, acutely this can occur, it can cause an acute obstruction generally आपके joints में skeletal muscles के पास वहां पर होता. Sometimes it can be chronic as well. Chronic form of decompression sickness will be due to ischemic necrosis. Some area in your body is having ischemic necrosis, and it is having, maybe it is throughout the body or it is in certain areas, especially areas involving skeletal muscle. वहाँ पर generally ज़्यादा होता. Whenever there is ischemic necrosis of your skeletal muscle, there is a chance that the patient will develop decompression sickness, and you will be able to notice this. How you notice this is generally when they go to a lower pressure area. For example, if it's a deep sea diver and they are going to a lower pressure area, generally they'll start sweating a lot, they might start vomiting, they'll start shivering. And if you compress them, you literally put pressure on their body, their body will immediately start recovering slightly. Their symptoms will subside a little bit as soon as you remove the pressure. Let's suppose you are using your hands and pushing them down. Okay, you're creating pressure, essentially you're pushing their body, so they will be slightly better. As soon as you remove your hands, they'll again start shivering and all of that. So that is a sign of decompression sickness. Okay, that is a sign that they did not decompress properly. It will also happen in deep sea divers who suddenly take a flight. Okay, let us suppose there is a deep sea diver who today went to took a very deep dive, and next day morning they didn't relax enough, they didn't give enough number of hours, they didn't sleep for, let's suppose, a few hours, or they didn't rest for a few hours, and suddenly the next day after a couple of hours itself they board a flight. In those people it will become very apparent because they are going from high pressure area to suddenly to a low pressure area. Both apparent हो जाता है decompression sickness. I hope you understood the logic here. Now, coming to the next type of embolism, we have amniotic fluid embolism. Now, this is a medical emergency. Generally, during parturition, sometimes this is a very serious condition and an unpredictable condition, which can lead to the death of the mother, maternal mortality. During labor or immediately after postpartum period, sometimes what happens is the contents of the amniotic fluid, they might enter uterine veins. Amniotic fluid might enter into uterine veins. Okay, this can happen during the labor or it can happen immediately after labor, postpartum. Okay, and it is very quickly reaching the right side of your heart. As a result, what will happen is it can cause fatal complications if it reaches your heart very quickly, especially the right side of the heart. Notably, you will see that their lungs will get damaged. There will be hemorrhage, congestion, edema, and dilation of the right side of the heart. Generally, right-sided heart failure can occur, and you will see that they will not be able to breathe properly. There will be dyspnea, hypoxemia. The blood will not have enough amount of oxygen. Their blood pressure will suddenly fall. They will have cyanosis, deep cyanosis. Their organs and their fingers will start becoming bluish in color. Okay, that is because of cyanosis. Oxygen is not being supplied. Cardiovascular shock can occur. Some patients might have convulsions, some patients might go into coma, or some might die. Okay, so amniotic fluid embolism is something that you need to counter very very quickly if the patient is developing amniotic fluid embolism. Okay, then we have atheroembolism. Fairly simple. The patient has atheromatous plaques. ठीक है, एथरोस्क्लेरोसिस है उनको या एथरोमेटस प्लाक्स है पेशेंट के एओटा में, स्पेशली एओटा में आता, एंड इट इज ब्लॉकिंग द फ्लो ऑफ ब्लड देयर. ठीक है, इट कैन generally it is arising from atherosclerotic plaque. The most complicated form will be when it is blocking the aorta, but it can, it can affect any other blood vessel as well. The point here is that it is starting from a atherosclerotic plaque. Okay, then it is going and lodging anywhere. Sometimes it is a medium sized it is affecting medium sized arteries. Sometimes it can affect small arteries as well, or arterioles for that matter. Then finally the last type of embolism is tumor embolism. कभी कभी क्या होता, whenever when a patient has a malignant tumor, it can invade local blood vessels. Wherever the tumor is growing, the cancerous tumor is growing, it can invade blood vessels whenever it is metastasizing essentially, and that metastasizing tumor can get lodged. That essentially is an embolism. Okay, the tumor itself is acting as an embolus in this scenario. So those are all the different types of emboli that you can have. Okay, just to reiterate, You can have thromboembolism, both arterial and venular or venous, pulmonary thromboembolism, systemic embolism, fat embolism, air embolism. Air embolism का एक special form gas embolism that will cause decompression sickness, amniotic fluid embolism, atheroembolism, and tumor embolism. These are all the types of embolisms, at least for you. Now, coming to the next topic, I hope you don't have any doubts. If you have doubts, please feel free to ask. Or if you want me to repeat anything in embolism. Cool. Now, coming to stroke. Ever heard of stroke? What is stroke? I'm not. Obviously explain you in detail, but what have you heard? How much do you know about stroke?
Heart attack.
I wasn't able to hear you. Can you please put that in chat? What is stroke? Or have you ever seen a patient having stroke?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what are the signs that you see? Whatever you saw, heart stop working. No, heart will keep working. It is not a. Okay, okay. That is one thought. Okay, heart stops working. That is not exactly true, but okay. Anything else that you know about stroke?
Sir, their legs and like hands will be numb. I mean,
They'll have numbness. Ever heard of fast signs? स्ट्रोक के FAST साइंस रहते ना, आप लोगों के हॉस्पिटल्स में लगे हुए रहते हैं इसके साइंस, या you will definitely find it somewhere or the other. If the patient is showing any of these signs, you will immediately have to rush them to a hospital. Acha, before I start stroke, one important thing I would like to clear: stroke and heart attack are not the same. Okay, a lot of people get these confused. Having a stroke and having a heart attack are completely different things. Stroke is a uh, cerebrovascular manifestation of a cardiological problem. Okay, of a cardiovascular problem specifically. I'll repeat once again. Stroke is a cerebrovascular disease or cerebrovascular manifestation of a serious problem, of a blood vessel problem. Okay. Now, इसमें हो रहा क्या? There is sudden and drastic development of neurological deficits. What is neurological deficit? Neurological deficit refers to a term where the patient's certain area of their brain, it can be random, any area, or it can be the whole area as well. Areas of the brain are not getting enough amount of oxygen, blood, and nutrients, because of which there is damage to those areas. Okay. Now, sometimes the damage can be very trivial. There is very little damage and the stroke is gone. Sometimes it can be a little more severe and the patient might have hemiplegia or the patient might go into coma. What is hemiplegia? हेमीपेजिया, पैराप्लेजिया, आप लोग पढ़े होंगे ना, या आई एम श्योर आप लोगों को ट्रेनिंग में पढ़ाए होंगे कभी ना कभी, क्लिनिकल ट्रेनिंग में. अच्छा, फाइंड आउट एंड टेल मी व्हाट इज हेमीप्लेजिया. Right. So sometimes, as I told you, the damage can be minimal, or sometimes the damage can be severe, wherein the patient is having hemiplegia or they are going into coma. Okay. There can be some other less common effects as well. For example, patients might have a vascular headache, they'll have a migraine, or they will have hypertension, blood pressure will suddenly spike up. They might have arthritis. There might be local pressure of an aneurysm, increased intracranial pressure. All of these can be amounted to stroke. Okay. So I'll give you two homeworks. Find out what is fast and find out what is hemiplegia. If you see fast, you'll have to literally be very fast in taking the patient to the stroke, pun intended. Hemiplegia क्या है वो मालूम रखो, मालूम करके बोलो मेरे को, ठीक है? Both of them. Now, coming to the type of damage that occurs, there can be two different types of damage that occurs in stroke. One is the patient will have ischemic brain damage because of ischemia developing, blood नहीं पहुंच रहा तो ischemia होता obviously. Second is the patient might have intracranial hemorrhage. Both of them can lead to stroke. Okay, we'll talk about the first one first. We have ischemic brain damage. Hmm. तो इसमें हो रहा क्या? Now, this is obviously caused because of ischemia. There is reduction or complete obstruction of blood flow to neural tissue, and there is insufficient, amount of oxygen that is being supplied for metabolic needs. Now, you have to remember that your brain heavily relies on oxygen and glucose for its daily needs. It does not get any other nutrients. Glucose is the whole and soul type of nutrient that your brain gets, and specifically your neuroglia and neurons get for aerobic metabolism. Generally, use citric acid cycle to generate ATPs, but as a result, you need glucose. Very, very important. Okay. And another problem is that the neuronal tissue that you have will not have a lot of glycogen reserves. They will not have a lot of energy reserves altogether. Very limited in its reserve. So if you are stopping blood supply, you will start seeing the effects of stroke within 3 to 4 minutes, because oxygen and glucose supplies will not last for more than 3 to 4 minutes. Immediately, if oxygen is being deprived for a patient with for 3 or 4 minutes, immediately they'll have permanent damage. That is why if someone is being choked, or let's suppose someone is not getting enough oxygen, within 1 or 2 minutes they will lose their consciousness. Now again, depends on their own lung capacity and all of several factors, but in general 2 to 3 minutes for an average human, they will start losing their consciousness. Now you can train your body wherein you are increasing your reserve volume, but but in general, or an average, a person will have about 2 3 minutes worth of oxygen. 2 minutes later, they will their consciousness will be gone. If the patient is still not receiving oxygen for 3 to 4 minutes, there will be damage, permanent damage to the neurons. Now, deprivation of oxygen can happen in four different ways. How oxygen is being deprived to the patient. First condition is called anoxic anoxia. Anoxic anoxia will occur when the patient has very low PO2. The amount of inspired oxygen is very low, decreased PO2. Their respiratory system is not working, or they have some problem wherein oxygen is not coming inside their blood. PO2 is very low. Second, anemic anoxia. Anemic anoxia essentially refers to a property where oxygen carrying capacity of the hemoglobin is reduced. Now, if you remember last year, you studied about blood. Blood has erythrocytes, RBCs, and these RBCs will have hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is a special protein that has iron in it. That iron will be attached to oxygen, and this hemoglobin has the capacity to carry oxygen. Let us suppose that hemoglobin is losing its ability, or is not efficient in the amount of oxygen that it can carry. That type of anoxia is called anemic anoxia. Then third one, or third way wherein it is not getting oxygen, your brain is not getting oxygen, is called histotoxic anoxia. Histotoxic anoxia is when there is direct toxic injury, because generally this occurs because of cyanide poisoning. Whenever someone is consuming cyanide, what will happen is hemoglobin में hemocyanin बनने लगता. Cyanide will go and bind to the hemoglobin molecule, and it will change your hemoglobin molecule. It will cause poisoning of your cells, hence the name histotoxic anoxia. It will be toxic to your tissues. Okay. Then finally, the fourth type is called stagnant anoxia. Stagnant anoxia is in which it is a condition in which there is damage because of cessation of blood. Okay, this cessation of blood can be a clot, it can be an embolus, whatever the cause, your blood is getting stagnated. And as a result, what happens is the toxic metabolites. Now normally whenever a cell is performing metabolism, there will be metabolites that are created. A lot of free radicals, a lot of metabolites are created. As a result, what will happen is these metabolites, if they are not removed, your blood is circulating all around your body, and what it will do is, as it is supplying oxygen to tissues, it will also take away these toxic metabolites. It will not let these toxic metabolites accumulate near your tissue space. Here the problem is that because blood is getting stagnated, those metabolites have a higher chance of staying near that area, changing the pH of blood and causing damage to the cells. Okay, ultimately leading to stagnant anoxia. So these are the four ways in which deprivation of oxygen can occur, leading to ischemic brain damage. ये समझ में आया what is ischemic brain damage? If you have doubts or if you want me to repeat it again, please feel free to ask. Okay, now coming to the next one, intracranial hemorrhage, histotoxic anoxia. Okay, histotoxic anoxia, see, first of all, divide the term histotoxic. इसका मतलब क्या है? हिस्टो का मतलब इट refers to tissues. ठीक है, toxic means there is some toxic subjects, there is some noxious subjects, there is some substance that can cause damage. So there is some substance that is causing damage to your tissue. यहाँ पर if the tissue itself is damaged, for example in case of cyanide poisoning, cyanide poisoning में क्या होता, your hemoglobin, see, your blood has erythrocytes which has hemoglobin, right? Hemoglobin is essentially a protein in which a globin molecule, globin protein is having a heme protein attached to it. Because the heme molecule, the iron molecule, is attaching to the globin molecule. If you look at the structure of hemoglobin, you'll be able to understand it a little better. There's a proper porphyrin ring which will have, irons attached to it, and to those irons you will have oxygen. यहाँ पर the problem is, instead of hemoglobin being formed, hemocyanin is being formed, and hemocyanin cannot house oxygen. ठीक है, hemocyanin does not have the capability of taking in oxygen, of binding with oxygen. As a result, what will happen is, the tissues that are getting affected, they will start getting poisoned. Cyanide will also cause another problem. It will not just form hemocyanin, it is a tissue respiratory arrestor. ठीक है, जो टिश्यू लेवल रेस्पिरेशन होता, सेल्युलर रेस्पिरेशन जो होता ना, सेल्युलर रेस्पिरेशन refers to all the processes in your cells which are taking up oxygen and they are converting into ATP. ठीक है, oxygen is not only required for, you know metabolism, it is required for normal, uh, how should I put it, normal functioning of the cell as well. In this scenario, first of all, oxygen is not being supplied to your cells. Second, the cellular respiration that gets disrupted because of cyanide. Cyanide is a cellular respiratory poison. Your cellular respiration does not occur. As a result, those tissues will get damaged and those tissues will die. Hence, the result that occurs will be anoxia to those cells. Oxygen is not being supplied to those cells, hence the name anoxia, and it is occurring under the pretext of cellular damage or tissue damage, hence the term histotoxic anoxia. I hope that cleared your doubt. Anyone else, any doubts? Okay, now as I was telling you about intracranial hemorrhage, the second type of cause of stroke. Intracranial hemorrhage can be intracerebral hemorrhage, or sometimes it can be subarachnoid hemorrhage. So essentially what is happening is, because of trauma, or sometimes it can be non-traumatic as well. For example, the patient has hypertension, or the patient has vasculitis, the patient might be having coagulopathy, coagulation disorders, or there might be any other spontaneous causes which are leading to hemorrhage. Now, depending on where hemorrhage is occurring, it can be inside the cerebrum, your cerebral space, or it can be in the subarachnoid space. Now, there are different factors that will cause it. Intracerebral hemorrhage के लिए अलग factors है, subarachnoid hemorrhage के लिए अलग factors है, which we'll discuss tomorrow. Okay.